Hey, hello everybody. I hope everyone's well. And I know it's been a very long time since I've made a YouTube video. And this is going to change the dynamic quite a bit for me with a lot of people and just a lot of people. And I'm sorry, but I'm calling, I'm making a series of videos. I'm not sure how many yet because it depends how much I rattle on about. But it's going to be entitling it called the I'm Done series. Done. And I'm sorry, people, but I'm done. I I cannot go on without telling the full truth of many things. And this is going to be difficult for people who are of a certain narrative, and we're going to get into that because they're going to find it very hard to take. As I've known all these years, for about the last 8 years in particular, politically speaking, for sure, because I was gifted with spirit certain outcomes, premonitions, which I've had all my life. If you've ever listened to any one of my podcasts. Oh, but apparently, too, I just have to address this for a moment. I was told by somebody at one of the spiritualist churches here in Vancouver that, somebody said, well, he talks about himself too much. And I'm like, isn't that interesting? Because I don't talk about publicly when I'm at churches doing services, because I'm technically a spiritualist minister. What I do, like in terms of workshops, I don't talk about that. I don't promote anything in that way because I think that's not the place to do it in a church service. But other people do. And I find their level of talking about themselves to be inconsequential because they're not talking from a place of deep, profound spiritual experiences. What they're doing is they're talking about promoting their workshop or their readings or their stuff that earns them money. Yeah, I don't do that. When I talk about myself, I usually, and particularly in those situations, I'm talking about the profound experience with spirit and sharing that, not to make myself look good, but to share the wisdom and insight and probably the level of humility that I had to come to receive that, which means the level of vulnerability, which is an example that we all have to do. And we come in and out of states of vulnerability, of course, right? We don't always stay in a super vulnerable state or high spiritual state. You can't. You can't function in this world. But I just wanted to say that before I get started, because quite frankly, I'm going to be saying some things now in these series to address the spiritualist churches. Like I said, this is the I'm Done series. I've been nice and I've been willing to put up with a lot. No more. So I'm going to start with 2016. First of all, I want to acknowledge somebody I love watching named Katie Hopkins from England. She's a brilliant podcaster. And I think her series is called Batshit Bonkers Britain. She was a journalist, I believe, of some sort inside BBC for many, many years. And as far as I can tell, maybe other people have watched her or know more about this, because BBC went very DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion nonsense. And they were going on about, men or women, yada, yada, yada. And she just found it incredibly offensive as a woman, as she should, that suddenly, men were going to be in her spaces as a woman, private spaces, etc., in sports, whatever. She started speaking up. She also spoke up a lot against the Islamic movement in England. And she was targeted by the Islamic fundamentalists in England who more or less attacked her physically and otherwise. So she left and she's done her own thing. And great kudos to her, of course, to Douglas Murray, of course, Jordan Peterson, and so many others, Dave Rubin, all of them. And I think they've just been brilliant. My situation, though, is I didn't come at this from a place of journalistic knowing like all of them did, because they were all in the public. What came to me was always through spirit, either through clairaudience, visions, or dream state. So for all the people who are at home clutching their crystals and their sage, because they think Donald Trump is going to be the worst thing that's ever happened to the world, I've got news for you. The best is yet to come. He is the right one. And I have known this for 8 years, and I have been through hell and back dealing with people, trying not to step on toes, trying to put up with, I'm sorry, stupid remarks from people who are supposed to be aware. Seriously. And we're going to talk about the difference between awareness and your feelings. And there is a difference. Because people will say, well, I just don't feel right with them. Intuitively, I just don't feel right. And the moment you say the word I and feel in the same sentence, what you've done is you're taking your feelings, which are attached to your already preconceived ideas, the way I feel, and also the supportive groups that you're in that think the same way or feel the same way. This is now you're in a place of you're projecting a feeling, you're not receiving it. In awareness, you receive. That's the difference. In awareness, you have to rise above your preconceived ideas, your feelings. You must let them go. And that is not that it is such a subtle difference, but it makes all the difference in terms of mediumship, and particularly with premonitions. Absolutely. So 2016 happened, and if you listened to my podcast, I did do one on premonitions, and I talked about 3 particular ones, and one was 2016, where I had the clairaudience that said Trump will win the election. I pushed it away. It came back louder. I was down in Oklahoma. I was doing readings, etc., down there with at my friend's place, and we were watching the Democratic convention at the time. Hillary was talking. Couldn't stand her. Never could. Didn't like Trump either, really, at the time. But I thought, Hillary, just stay away from her. This woman is dangerous. And that's when it happened. And I thought, what the heck is this about? Because I wasn't, like I say, a Trump fan in that way. And it happened again. So I, told my friend Karen, and there was a response. And then many, many months later, she got a hold of me and said, Alan, your guys were absolutely right. I get it. I've done the research. And I said, yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? Because I wasn't a fan either, but here we are. And then when he lost in 2020, I thought, okay, World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, etc., all involved. And then right after he lost, about 6 weeks later, I had this dream where I was standing in the Oval Office, and I was looking down at first at the beautiful blue rug that's in there. And I realized all of a sudden that Trump was standing to my right. And I looked over, and the words came out of my mouth. And this is how spirit works with me a lot. And I said, the words came out, I can't believe you're still here after everything they have done to you. Now, this was in 2020. This was before 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, which culminated with the 2 assassination attempts. And by the way, if you don't understand that the hand of God was on Trump that day, in some way, I'm sorry, you need to sit down and try and figure out what God is. Wake up. This does not mean he's perfect. Of course he's not. Trump is a billionaire. He's not perfect. Elon Musk is a billionaire. He's not perfect. Nancy Pelosi, who earned $170,000 a year and is now worth over $120 million, is most definitely not perfect. Because nobody who earns $170,000 a year becomes a millionaire. Just use your common sense, people. Trump has earned what he's earned over a lifetime. And whether some of it was a little shady, whether it was this, whether it was that, whatever. Just, just wake up. So when that happened, I thought, okay, he's going to be back. He's going to win. But the phrase, what they've done to you, was the part that stayed with me. And it never left me. And then as the years went on, I thought, oh God, he's never going to get back in. Like, I really doubted. There was about, I think, 2023, late 2022 through most of 2023. I thought, oh, how is this going to work? I don't know how he is supposed to be back in. And then of course he won. And I have to tell you, it was the first time in like 4 years I could breathe. I just felt, oh my God, we're free. All of us are free now. There's going to be a chance for everybody. The man hasn't gotten into the office yet. He's called Netanyahu. He's been in touch with Zelensky and Putin. He's been in touch with North Korea. He's telling all these guys, settle down, get your house in order, shut up, stop killing everybody. And none of this is on mainstream media. You got to go to Joe Rogan and a whole bunch of different podcasters to actually see the video clips. And I have family that are so locked into their thinking because of the way CNN has presented Trump, or ABC, or NBC, or BBC, or CBC. By the way, CBC's just got to be trashed. It's got to be taken to the bones and start over. It's lost. Where is the Peter Zofsky of our era? We don't have one. None of them. It's terrible. And it's just narrative. And it's all World Economic Forum / BlackRock, Vanguard, da 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 da. Do the research. It's a rabbit hole, people, and it's tough. Let me tell you. It's not easy. Because it's actually scary. And as an individual, it's just overwhelming. You just realize all the connections and who's pulling some of the strings. You don't know who is pulling all of them. And I think it's different interests, more than one. So when he got back in, I thought, oh, okay, here we go, finally. And he's done what he's done, and it's been talking to everybody and trying to get things going. And now I hear today that apparently Harris is going to try and come back. I thought, oh, please, just go retire somewhere. Go find a beach, crawl away, take your shame with you because you need to. The fact that they paid you off somehow to say the stuff that you did. The fact that Joe Biden was a victim of elder abuse by the Democratic Party, and he was. Anyone who's ever dealt with cognitively declining adults, seniors, darn well knows that was elder abuse. And as far as I'm concerned, they should just be sued for it. And the fact that he's pardoning all the main players like Fauci, we'll get into that one in a minute. But I'm sorry, as Katie Hopkins would say, my darlings, Trump is the right guy right now. That doesn't mean he's the right guy forever. Nobody is. But in this time and period of world history, he's absolutely the right one. And if you can't wake up and see that, I'm sorry for you. And it's going to be really difficult for you when things get a whole lot better for everybody and you're sitting there saying, what the heck just happened? I can guarantee that many people are going to say, well, Trump is better because he was almost killed, so that made him a better person. Well, yeah, probably did. Would make anybody, make you, me, anybody a better person, hopefully. But he was already there. What the media never ever brought back was his history of his generosity. And I remember this for the 80s and 90s. There were many stories of Trump suddenly paying off people's mortgages. There's a very famous story of a taxi driver that he had gotten a taxi, I think in New York or someplace. And they were talking, the taxi driver was telling him about his story and left, and, they parted well, etc. And the next day or the day after, or very shortly after the trip, the man's mortgage was paid. Now, I've never heard Pelosi doing that, or Fauci. or Biden or Obama. Let's not get down that lane right now because that's a bad one. It's Trump did it. And I remember that story being told a lot for a while. I think it was the mid 80s, 86, 87, 88, but I remember it being there. And more than once. And it always stayed with me. Just, how one of those things just gets into you and you go, wow, that's, and you can complain all you want. He said this about women. Da, 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 da. Yeah, well, let's think about Clinton and the White House, right? He obviously had a very specialized um, head of Department of Oration, his orator um, secretary. We won't go much further than that. I'm sure you can figure that out if you know the story. So, those without sin cast the first stone. There are degrees, people. And the past does not equal the future. I saw an interview with him where he was talking about the day that he was shot. And he said, what was interesting? Just before they went out, they changed the order of his rally speech. Usually they do immigration last, but because of where it was being held, he thought that subject should go first. And apparently it always is on the right screen where he turned. Now, is it possible that it was a setup and that there was such a good marksman that he was able just to shoot the ear? I'm not willing to say that wasn't a possibility, but I'd say it's 90% that what happened and was probably set up by other players in the government. I would strongly suggest to everyone that you read, and you can get it on audiobooks, a book called One Nation Under Blackmail by Whitney Webb. I believe it's how you pronounce her last name, or Weeb. And I would strongly suggest that you listen to it. Also, a book called Chaos and a book called Mockingbird. Definitely be reading those. And also, you should also read Man's Search for Meaning and the other one, which is a really difficult book as well to read, but it's fantastic. Ordinary Men. Two of those, of course, are a Jordan Peterson recommendation, but they're about the Holocaust, etc. And what it is just a real psychological view of what happened to people. One as a concentration camp survivor, and the other one was as middle-aged men who were conscripted by the Nazi regime and became the most insanely horrific serial killers, and then what it did to them in the end. So it's fantastic stuff. But it goes, the whole point of these stories are about programming. How people are programmed to survive, how people are programmed to become something that they never thought they could be, both good and bad. So these are important, and I wish every high school student now would be reading them. But of course, that's never going to happen because they're too busy talking about gender and cutting off their body parts. But again, those are other situations to talk about. But back to Mr. T. God does not choose perfect people because there are none. Newsflash. Do you think many of the stories in the Bible of God's chosen moment with a soul, even Moses, was a perfect being? No. Moses was actually probably quite bad because for the longest time, if the stories are true, he was adopted as a Pharaoh's son. It wasn't doing two very good things to his own people that he didn't know were his own people. So you gotta really use your logic a little bit, not just I feel this way because Trump said this about women. Oh. You've been to a locker room, ladies? Have you? God, I've been around women who are worse than that talking about men. Disgusting. Human beings, people. Just snap. If you're so locked into one narrative, I want you to go to the bathroom right now. I want you to look yourself in the mirror, take your dominant hand, and then slap your face really hard. I don't want you to think the way I'm thinking, but what I want you to do, if you're caught in a narrative that doesn't allow you to question on a deeper level, then for God's sakes, do something to do that. Just going back to that point where I was making that I wasn't a fan of Trump, and I wasn't. I remember going through this cycle as 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, all of it went on. I remember somewhere around 2022. No, sorry, the fall of 2021. I remember being very upset about a lot of things. And, the stories and the media, and you could tell they were lying, etc. And I remember standing in my kitchen at the time, and I was crying, and I reached up to God. I just, whole heart open, and I said, God, I don't care if I'm right or if I'm wrong. I need to know the truth. If I have to eat crow and apologize, I can do that. But I just need to know the truth. Well, of course, I had to wait. And as the years went on, the truth started to show more and more. And it was already there because I already had the premonitions. But I was in a place of is this really going to happen? Is this really right? This is going crazy. And here we are. Don't ever think that anybody in politics doesn't have self-interest. Of course they do. Fauci held on to a position for how many decades? Earning $400 and some odd thousand a year, and is incredibly wealthy. You gotta dig, guys. You gotta ask the question. You don't just come up with that sort of wealth because you're there. You don't think there were deals going on with them? With Pelosi and the rest of them? Come on. The Republicans are bad. They just believe in money. Yeah, the Democrats are bad. They believe in money, and they pretend to give it to other people. And then, wait a minute, but black schools and communities are worse off now than they've ever been. Under 8, 10, 12 years of Democrats. Okay, sure. You go ahead. You just keep believing this. People in Canada, this is a mess up here. It's an absolute freak show mess. And Trudeau, the worst. Klaus Schwab said in an interview, it was on YouTube, of course, never on mainstream media, because mainstream media would never show this. But on YouTube, the interview where he said so proudly and profoundly, we have infiltrated many governments with our young leaders, and Trudeau and Macron and blah. He listed a whole bunch of them. Most of Trudeau's cabinet has been involved with the WEF, World Economic Forum. It's not a good thing, guys. Jeez, mother of God. Spray cold water on your face. Take ice and dump it on your head. Do something that makes you uncomfortable enough to say, oh, gee, you know what? I got to dig a bit here. Because that's where I was. Spirit threw me into a place of real disarray with all this because I'm receiving information from the spirit world, which is bang on, and the world around me is nowhere near it. Thinking, okay, this one may be just a bit beyond me, guys. I don't know if I can hang on to it. Same thing happened with the vaccinations for me. Sorry, but here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you right now, and I'm sorry. No, I'm not. I'm tired of saying I'm sorry. I'm not sorry about anything. I don't have to be. Not about this. If I lie to somebody, I'm sorry. If I hurt somebody purposefully because, I wanted to, I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry for telling the truth. And by the way, there is no such thing as your truth or my truth. There is the truth or the truth. You have lived experiences that are profound and meaningful, and you will probably find truths within them, like grief and love and sorrow and hope. But your truth, the moment you say that, all you are saying to everybody is that you are a narcissist. And if you use that phrase, nobody can judge you for your bad behavior. Well, this is my truth and this is who I am. So you just have to accept me the way I am. Actually, I don't. And nor does anybody else. No, they don't. This is not how this works. I remember when that phrase was first used in the early, late 80s. It was a friend of mine. And one day she started talking about her truth. And I said, Lynette, what? What are you talking about? What do you mean your truth? Well, me, this is how I am, so it's my truth. And I said, what? I said, there's no such thing as that. Yes, there is. And I believe, and I thought, oh, here we go. It was this narcissistic spin. It also is incredibly infantizing. You listen to somebody who talks that way. Well, my truth, and it's always, it goes into themselves. It's all about them all the time. It's this mirage of self-awareness that is so steeped in their own narcissistic wants that they can't see it. Spirituality is tough, guys. Spiritual growth is almost murder sometimes. And if you're going to do this work honestly, to the highest degree of your honesty, you have to jump in with both feet. And you better know you're going to get burned a lot until you get to a certain place within yourself. And then the burns probably aren't so deep or as severe all the time as you go on, as your awareness awakens. But it's never ending. There's no end point. There's no I've arrived. It's always growth. It's always a challenge. You will always succeed and always fail. You will let yourself down in terms of your behavior at times, and you will be a saint other times. We get better, we get more steady, but perfection here? No. So, sorry, where was I? Oh, yes, the wonderful subject of vaccination. And I'm talking particularly about the mRNA. So I don't want people saying, Al is an anti-vaxxer. He doesn't like vaccinations. Oh, shut up. I mean, I'm so sick of the go-to arguments, right? You're a Nazi. You're a homophobe. You're a transphobe. You're an anti-vaxxer. Oh, that's just, it's lazy. That is low resolution thinking and response. Please get out of it. Do better. Be better. Thank you. So, okay, as Katie Hawkins would say at this moment, she'd probably say, now look, my darlings. She'd soften it up. So, and I'm sorry I'm referencing her a lot, but I've watched her videos quite a bit. I love how she does it. It's very real. It's the British mentality that I remember growing up with around me with watching shows and whatever. Very clear cut, right to the point. No mess, no muss, no fuss. Just there it is. And, life is this, so that we all have to deal with it. And by the way, you're crying. Can I get you a cup of tea, love? Because that's what you give people in England when they're crying and upset is tea, which is terrific. However, vaccination. So this is how it happened for me in terms of why I never got a shot, why I was against them, etc. So hang on. So about the fall of 2021, I was doing reading. And a person, I'm not going to give the gender of the person who came, nor the gender of the person from spirit, because people could figure it out. So before this person arrives, I'm very aware of a connection from spirit, relative, very strong, I would say spouse. And I keep hearing the word in my mind very clearly, lipozoid. And I mean, wait a minute, lipozoid? Isn't that something to do with a vaccination? what the heck is that? Oh, I don't want to do this. And in my mind, I was thinking, I don't want to have this conversation because, of course, it was everywhere, right? It was on the news. It was on the TV. You couldn't get away from driving in your vehicle, and it would be all about the vaccination. And I thought, oh, this is my subconscious regurgitating, what's been on around me. So I sat down, did a very deep awareness prayer meditation, and it got stronger. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have to start with this. I don't like it, but I'm going to have to start with this. So this person sits down. How are you? We're cordial. And I said, I got to tell you this. I'm hearing lipizoid. I'm very aware of the spouse and spirit. And I get the feeling that they're not happy about the lipizoid. And the person sitting there says to me, Alan, that is my spouse. And that spouse was one of the main developers of lipizoids at UBC. Ding! And I'm sitting there and I thought, and they're not happy about the way the lipizoid is being used for this mRNA vaccination. And I knew it. So when I said that, the whole vibration changed. And this particular person got a little uppity and a little defensive. And I thought, I knew that was going to happen. So I'm fine. I'm good. We'll just go with this because this is the way my life is now. And they went on about all the doctors and their family and how they all had agreed that everyone must take the vaccination. And I'm sitting there as the lone wolf thinking, no, don't do it. I can't tell you details why, unfortunately. Just don't do it. And I couldn't win. I couldn't get through. There was no way I could get through. And I knew then by this interaction that I was also not going to be able to get through anybody else or most people around me. I knew it because I knew this was showing me the mentality that had been scripted enough that everybody was there. And of course, don't take ivermectin because that was bad. Well, ivermectin was the best thing to take, but never mind that. That's been proven now over and over. Of course, not on mainstream media. You're not going to find it, guys. Look on CDC list, look on the World Health list. Ivermectin is safer than aspirin. It's just the lies that have been told. It's just beyond. It's beyond me. And that people just followed so blindly. And I feel sorry for them. I have people coming for healings and they've got serious stuff going on and they've all had the shot. And most of them did not have these problems beforehand. Nowhere near. Healthy. Fine. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm taking that back. No more sorry. Cancel. I am not sorry. I'm sorry for them, but I'm not sorry. And I don't blame them. There's no blame here. It's just frustrating to see and to watch the manipulation. Fortunately, all of these experiences, I told a few people who I knew would listen and go, gee, Alan, oops, yeah. So it came very naturally in that way for me. I suppose I'm making these videos now because I'm appealing to people. If you are now starting to question, which I think a lot of people are, what's gone on the last 4, 5, 8 years in particular, I'm hoping in some small way this encourages you to question and to research. Don't just believe me. I don't want that. I was dealing with somebody at a church recently, and God love them, a very agreeable person, who is very nice people. Nice people, unfortunately, are usually the most dangerous because they're not always consciously honest. Because they're too worried about being nice and being agreeable and people liking them, as opposed to saying the truth. It's very difficult. Trust me, I've lost so many people, and I'm going to lose people when I make this and they see it. They're going to go, well, Alan, you're just talking. Okay, whatever, fine. But I'm sorry, I'm at the place now where I'd rather be with the truth and one or two people who know it than trying to appeal to people just because I want them to come and do some readings with me or a workshop or whatever. I'm sorry. Sorry. I would rather not be involved because it's getting too tough to sit in a conversation where people say, oh, Trump is just so bad. This is bad. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, God, you people are lost. And you can't see the truth because you have such a deep ideology. You've got to let go of the ideology. So before I go on to the next thing, politically, I've never been a conservative or a liberal. I vote either or, depending what the need is. That's the way we should be voting, not ideology. Wake up. Get out of the idea that, well, the liberals are always right. No, well, they're not. The conservatives are always right. Well, they're not. There are ebbs and flows, and you've got to be wiser. And that is why I think voting is so important in terms of age limit. No 16-year-old, because of ideology, should be voting. I even think 18 is a bit too low, particularly now, because I find teenagers now, even 18, 19, 20-year-olds, generally speaking, have been infantized to about the 16, 15-year-old level compared to our generation. And my parents' generation, I mean, by the time you were 16, you were running a farm by yourself. You were doing stuff that most 16-year-olds now won't even look at maybe till they're 30 in terms of their independence and the way they work and think. And it's not their fault. We've allowed this to happen. I saw the infantizing of my grade 8s every year as they came in. I was a high school teacher and I had a huge music program. That's another story altogether. But every year from about 2013 onward, I found that the grade 8s were becoming more like grade 7s or 6s or the grade 5s. It was just in their behavior. It was in what they thought was work ethic. And then I started questioning some of my older students whose siblings were the ones coming in from grade 7 into grade 8. And I said, what's going on? And I found out right away, oh, Mr. Holmes, my God, my brother who's in grade 7, they don't even have to memorize the times table. I'm like, what? We used to have to stand up and she said, yeah, we did too. I said, you're in grade 12. That was like 5-6 years ago. She said, oh yeah, it's totally different. She says, my brother, if he doesn't hand in an assignment, he can try like 4 or 5 times before he gets it done. That's a problem. We are not making or encouraging responsibility. We are infantizing. We are making them and people adults. So stay younger. Stay more helpless longer. And no, I don't think that we should be pushing them to be older too soon either. But we're not doing them any favors by saying, oh, well, that's okay. You're only in grade 7. You're 13. You're 12. I had a job when I was 13. And it wasn't a paper route. I've been working since I was 13. I don't understand. I'm sorry. I just don't understand. Nor do I want to, because I think it's very sad for young people. Again, not doing them favors. So as I go on in the next several weeks making different ones about different subjects, because I'm going to, and it's going to be totally tied to either premonitions or of some sort, dream states, etc., and what's going on in the world. For the people who are terrified again about President Trump, I want you to breathe and let it go. It's going to be much better for everybody. For the people that say, well, he's anti-gay, well, actually, he's got a lot of gay guys around him. And he knows Dave Rubin and Dave Rubin's husband. They've had dinner together. I mean, guys, just smack yourselves on your head as hard as you can. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It doesn't mean he's going to do things we don't like. There's probably going to be things he's going to do that I'm not going to like. But that doesn't mean he's not the right one for this job at this time in world history. Nobody does a job that everybody likes. It's not possible. I was one of the most popular teachers to ever teach, period. But I wasn't always liked. I had to make really hard decisions. I took kids to Europe, 100 kids, twice. Won an international festival. Do you think I was kind in those rehearsals for the year that I had to get them there? You have no idea. Responsibility, being a leader, is not about being liked. It's about results. And if the results work and then people say, hey, this person's done a great job, I know they're a little percolating, they can be a bit bully, but man, oh man, things are a whole lot better for all of us. That's what you want. We don't have that in Canada. We have a baby. We have a man in diapers right now running this country. And he's been in diapers from the time he got there. I was warning everybody not to vote for him. Over and over. I said, do not do this. This is going to be a disaster. And it's necessary, I think, for every generation to have these things happen so that we grow. Would I have liked it to be better with him? Absolutely. I would have wanted him to do a much better job. Did I want to be on his side? Of course I did. I wasn't out to get him. But knowing what I know of his history with Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, the way he's been trained, and his father was taking him to Davos or to the World Economic Forum meetings from the time he was about 12 or 13. He's been trained in this whole 2030 agenda. I'll leave that out there. We'll talk about that another day. You can go look that up because it's happening around us right now. Smart cities, smaller cities, you will own nothing and be happy. Klaus Schwab, look at his book. COVID-19, The Great Reset. Aye. Yes. Klaus Schwab has all the answers. Yeah. Oy. And you need to wake up about the climate change story. It's not as one-sided as you think. So, what's great is we've got to change, which is good. And people say, well, that's just the States. Well, it's affecting everything in the world, which is awesome. It's gonna make people kind of, oh, I've got to, change things. I got to shake up. There's dad's back in the building. And let's see now what happens. But it's already happening. It's just happening. I love it. I mean, that's how I ran my music program. This is what we're doing. Boom, 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 boom. That's it. Everybody, here are your rehearsal schedules. Here's the music. Damn, go. By the way, next week, bar 52 to 75, rhythms only. Blah, 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 blah. This is how we got to be successful. This is what you need. And the government needs to run that way. Absolutely. Yes, we need the kind of programs we need. I believe very much in a good healthcare system and all the rest, but Canada, we don't have a good healthcare system. You want a good healthcare system? Go to Spain. I have friends who just left. They're living in Spain now. They've got better life. They've got more money in their pocket, cheaper to buy a place, cheaper to live, possibly without gas. That's probably the one thing. Healthcare system, way better, cheaper for them. Canadians need to wake up. on that level. This is not the Canada of the 1970s and 80s, people. And for those of us who still sort of think it is, oh, we have a national healthcare system. Okay, we have one, but sorry, people are dying. Lots of people are dying because they're not getting the scans, the necessary preliminary testing done so we can identify what's going on. It's taking months. I have so many people who come to me for healings who said, yeah, well, I can't get a scan for 6 months. The specialist went on holiday. There's nobody else. They say it's going to be another 4 months before I get in to get an MRI or longer. It's criminal. It is criminal. And people say, well, the nurses were nice. Yeah, great. The nurses are nice. They took care of you. That's great. But they're not going to help you get these things done. I don't want somebody patting my hand while I'm dying if a scan that I could have had 2 years ago that I couldn't get would have saved me. That's not good enough. And everybody should be in the streets over that. Absolutely. It's not right. It's also not right to lie about medications that work, like ivermectin and fenbendazole, but we'll talk about those stories later. So, my dear friends, I'm going to leave you with that, and hopefully I haven't brought your world down too much, but life it's going to get better. So, lots of hope, lots of joy. Talk to you next time, okay? Bye-bye.